Hi guys, welcome back. So in this video we're going to talk about the marketplace application. So in this marketplace application we can list item here, and this information will be stored in the Solidity smart contract stored in the blockchain network. And here we will print our items for sale, and here we will show our own items. For example, let's say I have this account connected. So let's say I am selling a car for, let's say, 0.001 ether, and I'm gonna list item. This transaction will be written on the blockchain network. So let's wait for it. Yeah, so yeah. Okay, so now we have listed there's a car, the price is this, and I am the owner, and my items are here. So let's change it. So now use this account. Okay, so this one. So if you see, as soon as I have connected this account, this item is not shown here. In fact, it is shown with the button purchase. Okay, so let's create another item, cup, and the price is 0.00, the same price. Okay, I don't want to put more. So I can list item here. Let's do this. So let's wait. It's being written in the blockchain network. So now you see the car, it belongs to this, and this cup belongs to this owner, and this is my item. Okay, so now this is the owner, and if I want to transfer it to some address, what I can do is I will take the owner address and I will paste it here, and I will just simply transfer the ownership to someone else. Okay, and similarly I can also purchase item. So let's first transfer the ownership. Yeah, so now this item is not mine. Okay, and we can go to the first address. So now you see these are my items. I cannot see a purchase button, and here I can see the items which are listed. Okay, so and if I want to transfer it to some other, I can do it. But let's go back to this account 2 again, and let's try to purchase. So let's say I want to purchase it again. Okay, so this gives an error that seller cannot buy their own item. Okay, so this is the functionality in my application, but we can create it again. Okay, so let's create another item. Okay, so let's try to buy this one. So I can purchase it. So for this ones, since I am the seller, I cannot buy it again. So that is the functionality of my own application. Okay, we will implement this, but since this was not ours, like this car, so we can purchase it, and now this car, it belongs to me. Okay, to this address 0x5c. So you can see, you can again transfer it. So yeah, that's the application we will create today. So let's start. Okay, so as usual, let's start, uh, with writing a smart contract. So here I'm gonna create a new file, and I'm gonna call it um, marketplace.sol. Marketplace, yeah. So here I'm gonna start with spdx slash license slash, not slash, dash identifier MIT, and I'm gonna write, oh, pragma solidity, and it's 0.8.0. and then it's a contract marketplace. Okay, so in this marketplace contract, so first of all we need to define an item. So we can define an item using a struct item. So what are the properties of item? So it has an id, it has a name, it has a price, then there is an address, payable, seller. So who is selling, he should get some money. And then there is an address owner, who is the owner of this contract, sorry, of this item. And finally we need to check if it's sold or not. Okay, so if you remember, we got the error because if the item is sold, the seller cannot buy it again. So, and we need three more things like the list of items, the list of owned items, and the total item count. So for the total item count, we will use item count is equals to 0. For the list of items, we need to create a mapping. The mapping will be unsigned int. So basically we will say that first item, second item, third item using this mapping, and we will call it items. And then we have a mapping of address to unsigned int array. Okay, so why we need array? Because we are going to put all the items inside the array on items. Okay, so that is, so we have item count, we have items, and we have owned items. So first of all we need to create a function to list items. Okay, so we will create a function list item. So you want to add item inside a smart contract. So you remember I passed the item name and the price, and I clicked on submit. So it stored the item inside the blockchain. So we are going to do that. So we are going to pass string memory underscore name and the price. So if you remember, we passed name and price, and this is a public function, anyone can call it. So first we need to check if the price is greater than 0 or not. So if the price is greater than 0, this will be true. Otherwise it's gonna say price must be greater than 0. Okay, so that is the first condition. Require underscore price. I'm not sure why it's giving error, but let's see. And then we need item count plus plus. So if we add item here, okay, we should add increase the number of count. Okay, and then we are going to pass this item count. So let's say for the first item it's 1. Okay, so the first item it's 1, so the first item will be item. We are gonna pass these things inside the constructor. So first will be item count, because let's say it's the first item. The second will be name, you see here. The third will be price, so we will say price. Fourth will be uh, the one who is listing the item, he should get some money if he sells. Okay, so we are gonna say payable, and we are going to pass message dot sender, who is going to call this function. Okay, so that is like payable address. Honor is the address, so we are gonna say message dot sender. So whoever is listing the item is the owner of the item. And currently, so when you list the item, it's like is sold will be false because the item is not yet sold. And uh, so when we have list the item, we need to update this to owned item. So let's say this message dot sender is calling this function, so we need to add this item inside this. So you see, It's a mapping which take address and store it inside this unsigned array, uh, unsigned int array. So this message dot sender dot push, and we are gonna pass item count. Okay, so it's not honor, it's owned. Okay, so we have created our first function. So in this function, when you pass the name and price, it's gonna check if the price is greater than 0. It will increase the id using plus plus, and it will add the item in the items array, like the total items. And then it will simply say on item dot push, like how many items you own right now. And then we will simply put the item count. Okay, so let's say it's 1 or 2 or 3. Uh, so so now we have done this. So let's create um, a function transfer ownership. Okay, so let's create a function underscore transfer ownership. Okay, so we want to transfer the ownership from one address to another. So first of all, we are going to take the id of the item which we want to transfer. We need an address from, and we need an address to. And in this function, we will first create item storage. Item is equals to items underscore id. So what we are doing here is, we are just taking the item from this items array, and we are storing it as struct, and we are using storage. Okay, and we can say items, no, it's item dot honor. Okay, so if you see, we have this item struct, and there is something honor. So in order to get this honor, we simply say item dot honor is equals to underscore 2. So what we said is, we took the item and we set the honor to 2, like the address we want to transfer this item to. And then we want to remove item from previous honors list. So now we are going to use a for loop here. So first of all, create this storage from items is equals to on items underscore from. Okay, so what we have created, we just created an unsigned int array, and we are taking all the items that are from this address. Okay, so if you see here, here we are actually, there is a mapping which stores. So here we are storing the id, like which item id belongs to this address. So let's say 1 belong to this address, 3 belong to this address, 5 belong to this address. Okay, so now we are getting this, and we need a for loop to actually remove the item. So for unsigned int I is equals to 0, I less than from items dot length. So we will go to the maximum length of what someone owns, I plus plus. And in this, so now you have, multiple items. Let's say you have 10 items. So we want to check the current, if the current item matches with 2 id underscore id. If this is the case, we will say from items I is equals to from items. It's simply something, you want to remove something from the array. Okay, so you just remove the first item, sorry, you just remove some item, and you simply update the array. So you basically shift all the next element to the previous element. Okay, so and from items dot pop, so this pop function is going to remove the last item, and we will simply use break, because as soon as you get the item, the function will simply end. And basically this is a public function, sorry, this is an internal function. This is an internal function which we are going to call. So basically this internal function is simply, we will call it here. So when we will write a function purchase item, we are going to call this function. So what we are doing here is, so when we list the item, we create on items array, okay? And here we have multiple IDs, let's say 1, 3, 5, 7, or anything. So what we are doing here, we are selecting a specific item, and here we are checking if this items array, the items you own, if we match the ID of the item, we just remove it from the array and we shift all the next element to the previous element. Okay, so that's what we are doing. um, and after writing this function, after the for loop, we need to add item to new owners list. Okay, so how do we do that? On items and underscore to, like the address we are shifting item to, and we will simply use dot push underscore id. Okay, oh, it's on items. So now our function is complete. Okay, and we need to use this. So let's write the ownership, so purchase item function. So you remember at the start there was a button purchase. So if you click on that button, you are going to purchase that item. But how does it work? So let's create a function purchase item. Okay, and you need to provide the ID. So we need to provide the ID of the item which we want to purchase. It's public payable. Payable means that in this function you are going to transfer some token to another address. Okay, so first of all we need to take the item in the storage. We call it item and we get the item from the list. So this is the item we need to get from the list, and then we need to perform multiple operations. So first of all we need to check if id is greater than 0. We can say invalid id. Okay, the second thing is require. So message dot value is equals to item dot price. So whatever we are transferring, we need to include the item price, otherwise we need to say incorrect price. So when we are basically purchasing something, the price we need to give should be exact as the item price. Okay, and then we will simply use require again. We will say, okay, so item should not be sold. Okay, so if item is already sold, we will say item already sold. And finally we will see message dot sender should not be equal to item dot seller. Okay, and we will say seller cannot buy their own item. Okay, so these are the four conditions that needs to meet. And the first thing we are going to do is we will update this as true. So item is sold already. Okay, and once the item is sold, we will simply call item dot seller dot transfer, and we will transfer ethers to the seller using this. And finally to transfer, so okay, here you checked, okay, id is greater than 0, invalid id, the price is good, the item is not sold, and seller cannot buy, everything is good. We set the is sold to true, we send the money, but we need to call this function to actually transfer the ownership. So what we are going to do is underscore transfer ownership, and we need to pass id. From is basically item dot seller, and to is message dot sender, who is calling this function. Okay, so That's how you are going to purchase the item. And once you have purchased the item, we can again, just transfer the ownership without. So basically you are sending the ownership. So one way is to purchase the item using, some ethers. But if you remember, if you own an item, you can just transfer it to someone else like a gift without actually getting the money. So we can also write this function. So we will simply write transfer item function, which will take unsigned int id of the item, and the item you want, the address you want to transfer to, and it's going to be a public function. So I'm just copying this. So you need to get the item you want to sell or transfer, okay, not sell. So we need to perform this require operation. So the condition is id should be greater than 0, and id should be less than equals to item count. So id should be greater than 0 and id should be less than item count. So that was a mistake. That was a mistake. Otherwise we will say item does not exist. That is very simple condition. And another condition is, the someone who is calling this function, he should be the owner of this product. So item dot owner, okay. Otherwise we will say you are not the owner of this item. So once these two conditions are met, we will simply call transfer ownership. We will set the id. The from will be message dot sender, and to will be underscore 2, okay. So using this function we can simply, um, we can just simply transfer the item without actually sending some ethers. So if you see, this function transfer from and purchase item is almost similar, but here we are just, so we are not transferring anything, we are not transferring any ether in this function, okay. And finally we need to write a function get items by owner. So we need to give the address of owner, and it should be a view function, and it should returns an unsigned int array. We're gonna store it in memory, and we will simply return owned items, and we will simply return all the items that are owned by the owner, okay. So let's go back again. We created an item, okay. Then we created items list and owned items list. So to list an item, to store it inside a blockchain, we use this struct item and we put it inside the array. To purchase an item, you need to send the ethers to the one, that is actually calling the contract, because he or she is purchasing the item. And once you have purchased, we need to transfer the ownership. So we need to do something like this. So first we will remove the element, the item, from the owners list, and we will push it to the new owner. And finally we can get the items owner by, using this. And we can also transfer the item without transferring any ethers, using this transfer item function, okay. Okay, so now let's upload this smart contract on the blockchain network. So we have already compiled it. So I will select in the injected Web3 provider, because it this injected provider will connect it to the MetaMask. So we will switch to account one here, okay. So now our account one is connected. We will simply call deploy, and this contract will be deployed. So we will just confirm. So this transaction has been approved, and here we got our contract address, okay. So we will copy this contract address and we will just store it somewhere here, so we can just copy it back again when we will write our react code, okay. So yeah, our smart contract is uploaded and it's completed. So now let's move toward the React application. Okay, so we have finished our smart contract. So now it's time for React application. So just like we have done before, um, npx create React app, and it's gonna be, what should we name it? We just say Solidity Marketplace. That's a pretty long name, but that's okay. So let's do this. So the first step is to create this React application. I'm again repeating. The second step is to install the packages. We are just going to use Ethers library to communicate with the blockchain network. So yeah, so we will install Ethers after this application has been created. It's weird to just sit and not talk anything, not say anything. Okay, so yeah, it's done. CD Solidity Marketplace, and we are going to install npm install ethers at 5.7.1, and it's going to install ethers library. This is important because we are going to use ethers library to communicate with the blockchain network. So yeah, it's done. So now let's open it in code. I'm gonna bring it from my another screen. So yeah, basically I have two screens. On one screen I have opened the code which I have already written, and now I am writing it again because I want to explain each and everything while writing the code. So first step is I'm gonna copy and paste this CSS thing I really don't like. Then we will start with app.js. So let's don't import anything. So we're gonna import React from React, and with this we're gonna import use state and use effect. So always remember we have to import ethers from ethers, and we are going to import this. So now in this I think let's just keep it. So we will start from here. Const contract address is equals to this, const contract ABI is equals to this. So let's copy the contract address. So this is our contract address, so we will just copy and paste it here. And this is our contract ABI, we will copy it and paste it here. That's a pretty long ABI, so we are just going to minimize it. And after that we need to create use effect. um, so I made this mistake before, I'm not gonna make this mistake again. So gonna be a function, an arrow function, and we are going to say init function. Let's say it's const init or connect wallet, anything you like. So it's gonna be an async function, and it's gonna be an arrow function. And in this function we simply because we are connecting with MetaMask, so we are going to say const provider is equals to new ethers dot providers dot web3 provider and window dot ethereum. Okay, so that's the first step. Then we can set provider. Okay, and we're gonna pass provider. At the same time we are going to write this uh, const provider set provider is equals to use state. So basically provider is a state, a variable, so we need to store it. Okay, and so here's the thing. So if you remember at the start I changed the accounts, right? So we need to keep track if the account is changed, then the account we are using should be changed in the application. So for that, we will create window.ethereum.on, and we will say account accounts changed. So basically it will see if the account is changed, then it's gonna do something like async. It's gonna take the accounts, and it's gonna do something like this. So set account, so it's gonna set account to accounts 0, and here we will create something like this: const account set account. So always remember, whenever we have to store something in a variable, we use state, and then we say const signer is equals to provider dot get signer. So once we get the signer, we set the signer, not singer, signer. Okay, and again we will create the same thing. Maybe it's like a broiler plate kind of thing, so you have to do it every time: const signer. Okay, so once we have set the signer, we are going to create a contract is equals to new ethers dot contract. We're gonna pass contract address, contract ABI, and signer. Okay, that's very simple. Now we will set contract to contract, and again go back here and add this. So you see, it's very simple. Whenever you have to store something, you can do something like this, and we are gonna pass contract. So basically it's null, and we will pass the contract as null, and we will pass the account as string. Okay, because account is like a string. So once we have done this, once we have set the contract, we need um, yeah, we need to load the items and owned items, but that's okay. But so after this function, um, yeah, so after we have set the contract, so basically it's windows.ethereum. So let me see where it finished. Yeah, so once it's done, we need to create const accounts is equals to await provider dot send eth underscore request accounts, and we're gonna pass an empty. So we are going to set account to, so this is the first thing. Okay, so the whole idea is, once we have connected first time to the MetaMask, we are going to do this thing: const signer is equals to provider dot get signer, and set signer to signer. We are doing the same thing. So these things will run when we will connect for the first time. We will set the contract just like this, and finally we will load the items. So we will do that later. So yeah, so that was about like use effect. And here, so we have not yet called this init function, so now we will call the init function. So I will explain it again. We just said provider account signer contract. So before that, we added the contract address and ABI. Here we are just initializing a function, so when the page will load, all these things will run. So you will assign a provider, you will look for MetaMask wallet. So once the wallet is available, you get the accounts, you set the signer, you set the contract. And if you change the account in MetaMask, let's say you are in account 1 and you change it to account 2, then this will run and your account will be changed. Okay, so that was about it. Now we will write some functions related to load items, load on items, then we will write something list items, etc. So yeah, so let's write those functions. Okay, so now we will create two functions. One is const load items, and it's an async function, and we will pass the contract instance, and this is an arrow function. Similarly, we will create another function, uh, load on items. So in this we will simply say const item count is equals to contract dot. So since this is an async function, we need to use await contract dot item count. So we need to call this function, and we will simply say let items is equals to an empty array, and we will use a for loop. Let I is equals to 1, I less than is equals to item count, and I plus plus. Okay. So basically we will go through all the items. Const item is equals to await contract dot items, and we will pass I here. We will get the ith item, and we will push it inside our empty array. So we will push, so we will do something like this, and finally we will say set items. So we have done this now, and similar to this we will do the same thing. Let me just yeah, so we will do the same thing. I just wanted to copy and paste, but I don't think so it's a good idea. On item IDs is equals to await contract dot get items by owner, and we will pass owner. So basically we will pass the contract address, and let on items is equals to an empty array. Similar to this, we will create a for loop. So let me just finish, and then we will. So it's like I less than owned items dot length, because so we got it as an array, and so yeah, const item is equals to await contract dot items, and we will pass on items IDs, and we will pass I, and so so now it will be on items dot push. And what's the error here? Expected this. hmm. Okay. So yeah, so now we have these functions, and we will simply use set on items, set on items, and we will simply pass on items. So basically this so we need to create this. So we will create this items and on items. Const items set items is equals to use state, and it will be an empty array, and const sorry, on items set on items is equals to use state, and again it's gonna be an empty array. Okay, so now we have done this. So it's set items. Yeah, set items. So now we will call this function on two places here. So as soon as we change the account, we need to load the items, and we need to load on items like new items, and we will copy and paste the same function here too. So now we have created this like load item function and load on items. So basically it's gonna take this item count, and it's gonna take all the items using I, and it will push all the items in the set items, and then it will load this load on items, and it will take the address, and based on the address it's gonna take all these uh, items that are owned by a specific address. So so that was about loading items. So now we can we can simply write a function list item. So basically we need to now use a function to actually write something in the blockchain. So what we will do, list item is equals to async, and we will say name and price. So we are going to pass the name and price, and we will create a transaction is equals to await contract dot list item, and we will simply pass name ethers dot utils dot parse ether, and basically we are going to convert it to the ethereum uh, comprehensible format. Then we will simply say await. So we will wait for the transaction to be written in the blockchain, and finally we will say load items, and then we will pass contract. So as soon as we list the items, we need to load the items again. Okay, and now let's do this. So let's say our class name is this. So we are going to, let's say we create h1. Yeah, so in the h1 we simply write marketplace. So this is our header, and then we will create another class div. Class name is list dash item. So we're gonna list the item again. In this we will put h2. The title of h2 is list item, and we need two inputs and a button. So basically we will have an input here. The input id is item name, placeholder will be item name, and class name is input field. Okay, and in this input, yeah, so this is just a string input. So we are going to copy this and paste it here, and it's gonna be item price. Placeholder is item price, and it's again an input field. And finally we will create a button, and then we will see so basically this, oh, this button has a class name of button, and on on click it should call a function. So basically this function is an arrow function. So this function should call, so we're gonna use document dot get element by id. And what is the id? So basically it's gonna take two elements. One is item name, so whatever we write there, and we're gonna get the value. And then, oh, value, oh come on, what's, and we will do copy the same thing and paste it here, item price. So basically this on click is equals to this. So basically this function is a list item function, basically list item. So that's my mistake. It should come like this, like this. So let's go to terminal and click on npm start. I hope it works. It does not give any error. So let's open it here. Yeah, in app.js honor is not defined. Okay, so let's go and see what is the problem with honor. Yeah, okay, so the problem is here. So we are not passing the honor here, and also we need to pass contract when we want to call this function load item contract, and here we need to actually pass the account. So maybe we need to pass account here. um, yeah, we need, because we set the account, and I think we need to pass account here too. So now let's see. Okay, perfect. Oh, this button has no name. So let's name this button. So what's the name of this button previously? The name of this button is, honestly, we can set anything, but I just want to be list item. Okay, list items. So our button is, so we're gonna pass something like this, and we can click on list items. Okay, so let's try. So let's say car and 0.0001. Let's try to list item. So it's gonna be somewhere in the contract, and we will retrieve it back. Okay, so we are not seeing anything here because we have not yet written the code, but now our car with 0.001 ether is still there. So have we, yeah, so we have, I think, load all the items. So what we can do is we can create some divs here. So the first div is um, class name items, and we can just simply pass a simple h2 here, which is items for sale. And here we simply create something like this, items. So since we have all the items stored, so what we can do is we take the item and we simply does something div. Yeah, so once we have this, we take, like, in this div we take key is equals to items dot id, and class name is item dot dash card. So we want to put it inside a card. So once we have taken this id, we create a simple p. Okay, so I'm just gonna call, because these are three things. So in the first p we will say name, and we will simply say item dot name. In the second p we say price, and we simply say item dot price. And in the third we say owner, who is the owner of this item, and we say item dot owner. Okay, so wow, so basically it's a big number. So the price, so basically this item dot price, we need to first convert it. So ethers dot utils dot format ether, and we need to pass it. So now, okay, so resolved or address is not defined for ens name and value. Hmm. So yeah. So it took me some time to actually understand what the error was, and the error is here. So it took me like almost 10 to 15 minutes to understand. So if we go back here, it's saying that we are trying to access, a wrong big number value. So the error was here. So we need to go till on items ids dot length. So yeah, now it's fine. It gave me a hard time. So now you see we have printed this items for sale here, and we can do the same thing to now print our owned items. So what we can do is maybe we can copy and paste it here. So we say owned items, and instead of this we say your items, and in items we can say owned items dot map, and item dot id, item card. So yeah, let's see. So yeah, you can see here now we have items for sale and it's my item. So let's try changing this account if it works. Yeah, so you see item for sale is here, but that's not my item, so it just removes. So now we need to do two things. We need to add a purchase button here, and then we need to create an input box where we can transfer our item to someone else. Okay, so let's go back here again. So let's write two functions. Okay, so first we will write the functions. So const purchase item is equals to async. So we are going to take id and price of the item, and we will create a transaction which we will send to blockchain network contract dot purchase item and id, and we will pass a value ethers dot utils dot parse ethers, and we will pass the price. So once we have created this transaction, we will send it to the blockchain network and we will wait for the transaction to be written. In the meantime, I will create load items and we will pass contract and uh, load on items here, and we will pass account. So we have created this purchase item function. Now we will create this transfer item function. Const transfer item is equals to async id to address, like the address we want to send to, and then we will simply create a transaction. Const tx is equals to await contract dot transfer item. We'll say id to address await tx dot wait, and similarly we will do the same thing. So as soon as we purchase or transfer something, so our app is not broken yet. So now we will create a purchase button, and we will create an input holder. Okay, so let's code it. Yeah, okay, so let's code it. So here, so first of all, before this div ends, right after this we're gonna create a purchase button, but for this we need two conditions. So item dot is sold should be false, and item dot owner dot to lower case should not be equals to account dot to lower case. Okay, that's it. And so now we need this. So we need to create a button. Okay, so that is a button. It should have a class name of button uh, on click. So what happens if we do on click? So it's gonna call the arrow function and it's gonna call purchase item, and what we are going to pass item.id and ethers.utils dot format ether, and we're gonna pass item dot price. Okay, yeah, it's item dot price. Yeah, so let's see if we can see the button. So let's try changing the account, because yeah, okay, yeah, the button is there, but we did not write this. So we're gonna call this purchase here. So this is purchase, and here we need to do the exact same thing. First we need to create an input. In the input, the id is basically transfer address, and we're gonna say item.id. So that is our id, and placeholder is equals to transfer to address, so the address we want to transfer to. And finally we have a class name of input field, and so there is nothing here. So our input field is placeholder. So what's the problem here? Parsing error. Okay, so I think there is this problem. Id is equals to this. So we have this input id is equals to transfer dot item, placeholder is equals to this. Okay, so this is the error here. Oh, sometimes the errors are like we don't see. So in the button, the class name is basically button. It's the type of button. On click, it should do something like this. So it's an arrow function, and it should call transfer item, and it's gonna take id and document dot get element by id, and it's gonna take this this id. Okay, so let me take all this and let's this, and we gonna say okay, so this is this dot value. So we're gonna take the value from this, and we can say it's transfer. So I think now it's completed. um, so let's try to add more items. So let's create an item for this one. So let's create a cup for 0.000001. Let's list the item. Now it should not show any purchase button, and it should be shown here in the yours items. Yeah, okay, so you see there is no purchase button here, and we are looking at uh, this address is the owner. Let's try connecting address 1 now. Yeah, so you see This address one has this car, and we are seeing, so let's say we purchase this from address one. So now this address one should have the item, your items, okay? Let's see if we get the cup here. Yeah. So now we can see the cup is here and the car is here. So yeah, so that was about this marketplace application using blockchain, React, and Solidity. So hope you like it. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video. Bye bye.